Have you ever liked a thing so much that you wanted to express your love on the internet? In today's TED Talk, we're going to be discussing that. Welcome to the world of internet fandom culture.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Dysfunctional with DY and Luna. My name is DY,
And my name is Luna.
and today we're going to be talking about fandom culture. The very interesting thing that is fandom culture.
The very detailed, sometimes horrific identity of fandom culture.
Yeah. Um,
we're, ta- we're talking the ins and outs. We're talking the good, the bad, the mildly disturbing. We're going to talk all about it.
mm-hmm. It's going to be great. And, as a little teaser, we're actually going to do a whole separate episode on shipping. So, look forward to that.
Yeah, there's too much when we were getting the bones for this episode that we're like, you know what? Let's just its own separate thing because shipping is such a big part of fandom culture. It's almost like half of its identity. I feel like that it's too big to just be like a slight mention to everything that fandom culture encompasses, especially on the internet. Like since the
Absolutely.
internet's created, so. But we might as well start from the very beginning as to how fandom as it exists today started.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like we gotta go from the beginning to kind of explain how it went. And, educate the youths as to why this is here, how it came to be, and why it's so prolific. And I don't think we would have gotten some pieces of media without it. And certain things would not have existed without it
Very
when you think
true.
about it.
Certain Disney TV shows that have a very specific thing in it probably would not exist. And yes, I'm talking
Yeah.
about the Owl House and Lumity kissing.
Oh, well, it's not just that, but yeah. Context, like do you know the backstory as to how everything got started? Like
I
the
do not.
full okay.
Just the
Time for
fact
me
that
to pull it.
people came together because they liked a certain thing and they were like, we
Mhm.
should make a whole community out of it.
This all started a long, long time ago in a decade called the 1960s.
When
But
was
no,
that?
as of recording this, over 60 years ago, approximate,
Oh
depending
my
on where in the
gosh.
60s. Yeah, yeah, it's been a
Wow.
long time. Yeah, yeah. To make an extreme long story short, when the original Star Trek series was airing in the mid to late 1960s, the main audience for the show was women because a lot of the time, if not the whole time, their husbands were out working, and because women did not have rights, they were just stuck at home, and that was the time that the show was airing in like the middle of the day, and so it grew a predominantly feminine or like female audience,
We love
and
women in
we love
STEM.
women here. We love women in STEM. But yeah, and not to say that there wasn't male viewers. That obviously that wasn't the case, but there was just a more predominantly female audience just because of the timing the show was airing. And the way that it came to be was just that women really liked this show that by all accounts wasn't catered to them. This was a fucking sci-fi show. One of the most prolific in the whole history, of like media. This is one of the most like famous, well-known, well-beloved sci-fi series along with something like Star Wars, right? And it predominantly grew to popularity because, well, women kind of had nothing better to do. Mostly everything was catered to men, and they're just like, huh, this one show that's not catered to us is actually really good, and we actually like it.
Yeah.
And literally, the whole reason why shipping exists is because women were just like, why does Kirk have more chemistry with his like male pilot co-worker, whatever their actual relationship is, I don't fucking care. But why does Kirk have more chemistry with Spock than he does with literally every other female love interest he gets like every other like episode?
Because
And
gay.
that's yeah, because shipping was born. And that's how shipping was born. Just because women were just like, we don't like being treated like cardboard in the media we consume, even if unintentionally. So let's just do this.
So, haha,
Not
we're going to make your straight men gay.
yeah, essentially. Women also, very fittingly, also made fan fiction. I don't remember the whole story, but essentially there was a newspaper column that would like and it was like the beta version of fanfiction. And this is where like OCs came into play. This is where the term Mary Sue came into play and how that terminology kind of planted its roots. So yeah, you can basically thank women in the 60s in the Star Trek fandom for why you can go to Comic-Con in
Thank
like
you,
July
women.
or whatever. Thank you, women in the 1960s. Your dedication is very much appreciated. I keep talking about this. Certain pieces of media would not exist had it not be the existence of fandom. Because certain authors or certain directors or whatever were fans of a specific piece of media and were paying homage to it, or in some cases, where it basically took that original media, put their own spin on it, and then made something original out of it.
Hmm.
So it's paying homage while also being like, yeah, I was a fan of this back in like my teenage years and my college years or whatever. And then it made it into something big.
Which
And
is
I
great.
think that's, yeah. Some of the products that came out of it were not, but the idea and the passion is there.
Yeah. We have Stucky, which is
Yes.
apparently what heated rivalry is based on for some reason. But
Yes.
we love
Yep.
heated rivalry, so.
Yeah. Very famously, 50 Shades of Grey was based off of a Twilight BDSM fanfiction on fanfiction.net. So
Hmm. I
make a
did
bet
know
as you
that,
wish. Yeah.
which
I
is
I
interesting.
this is an anecdote by the way, but the fact that my dad has read those books and read them with a complete straight face, and I'm just like, "Dad, you do know what those books are about, right?" "Yes." "You do know that it was based off of this thing, right?" "Yeah, no, but also I don't care." "And you're reading this with a complete straight face, not feeling anything?" "Yeah." "Are you gonna watch the movies at all?" "Nope." "Cool, Dad, you do you, I guess." Like
Yeah.
I guess we should probably pivot a little bit. What was like your first fandom experience? Like what was your first instance of like going on the internet and realizing, "Oh, a lot of people like the same thing I do," or like have the same passion or
That's a
whatever?
great question. Would probably be Marvel.
Was it like early stages of the MCU or did it go further back than that? Was it like the Toby or like the Andrew Spider-Man movies or did it go like certain TV shows or whatever?
Probably would have started at Andrew, Spider Man.
Mhm. Yeah, that would have been around 2012. Yeah, that would have been like 2012-ish.
Yeah.
Um, for me, it's a little bit not hazy, but there's a weird like gray area because a lot of the things that my I was into, a lot of my school was into, at least when it comes to like elementary and stuff. Like there were certain TV shows, for example, that were on the air at the time that a
Hmm.
lot of my classmates were also watching. So it's basically the equivalent of going to like the water cooler at the office and being like, "Hey, did you see that new episode of Friends or whatever?" It's the same thing. Where
Yeah.
every week all my classmates are like, "Oh my god, did you see the new episode? Hell yeah, I did. It was sick." Like basically that. It was
Mm-hmm.
essentially that. So that was my first instance of like community liking a thing, but in terms of me liking something and finding that the internet also likes it, I would probably say is One Direction back in like the 2010s. Actually, specifically in 2010.
Okay.
This was I think around the time that the What Makes You Beautiful video came out in like September or August, like around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like, "Oh my god, this new boy band, they're so good and they're so fucking hot." Mind you, all of these boys at this point were like in their like late teens. I think Harry was like 17 at this point in time. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. These boys were still like late teens, early 20s at like the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
But my my classmates were like, "Oh my god, I just found out about this video and it was like so, whatever." And then I checked it out and then thus the rabbit hole spiraled.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it went as in depth as some of my other friends did, like they went in depth in terms of their music. I went in depth in terms of how much the internet liked them at the time. Because like obviously you're slightly older than me, but you still remember when One Direction was like in their peak and they were fucking everywhere. You could
Yeah.
not go two steps without the internet clamoring for one of these boys, right?
Oh yeah.
So so seeing seeing the fandom reaction at like the height of their popularity between like 2010 to like 2013 or 2014, it was a time to be alive. I love how by all terms of accounts they technically are still on hiatus, but let's be honest. Now that Liam is long past, no, no,
It's not happening,
they've broken.
unfortunately.
But even then, when he was alive, they're still just like, no, there's still a lot of bad blood. And when I
Yeah.
heard about that, I was like, yeah, that's never. Those memories were long since dashed by the time they started releasing new projects.
It was a
But
fun thing in their childhood, but they're not gonna. It's not coming
no,
back anytime soon.
yeah, they've talked about it in length of like how bad it was when they were there working with Simon Cowell. So let's not go too in depth into it. But essentially, when they were in their peak, I remember seeing so many people post about it in like early stages of Twitter, early stages of Instagram and all that jazz, and like videos and stuff like that online. But I never posted anything about it because I was barely in my double digits at that point in time. So I knew that I was just like, I'm just gonna observe and not do anything. And because of that, I was able to observe things without fully participating in it and how fandom culture in the way that fandom, in terms of a music artist at least,
Yeah.
kind of works. And I've talked about this with you in private, but the One Direction to emo to K-pop pipeline is real because that's definitely how I got into that. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna retract
Um
my previous statement and say that it's probably actually Pokemon.
yeah, that was also just like a cultural phenomenon. So you like that makes sense. That was like
Hmm.
the
My
main
the
thing.
first game that I've ever like laid eyes on was Platinum, but then the one that I actually started playing the games was Black and White, the first one. So
Mhm, mhm.
2010.
2010-ish, yeah, around the same time.
Yeah.
Um, but like even around that time in 2010, like I was getting more familiar with how YouTube worked at the time before it was redesigned in like 2012 and then
I miss old
redesigned
YouTube.
again. God, old YouTube was such a gem. Oh my fucking god. That's making it sound like we're older than we actually are, but like
Back in my day.
back in my day, yeah. But yeah, my first sense of community was 1D, and it extra helped that I could kind of, I had classmates who were fans of them for around the same time I was. So I was able to be like more feel like included and all that, and it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it made sense. It
Hmm.
made sense for the time and all that, and I still have very fond memories of that time. Obviously, I look back on it with like rose tinted glasses because there's a lot of stuff that I look back in hindsight that I'm just like, why were we complaining about this? This seems normal. But once again, this would later prep me for K-pop, and then I'm just like, actually, that's like pity. That's like pocket change in comparison to whatever the fuck K-pop's got going on. So like,
Yeah.
it prepped me for being normal in fucking K-pop.
Oh boy.
It's
But don't worry, we'll
like,
probably get into K-pop and all of the lovely communities in some point.
yeah, that's gonna be its whole other episode because we could go fucking on and on about the intricacies of K-pop. But what was probably like first TV show or movie that I would say was probably like in like internet wise? I want to say probably the MCU. I'd say is probably like the first one, like, cause like yeah, I was fans of other like TV shows of the time in like the late 2000s and such, where
Yeah.
my other classmates were also watching it. But in terms of like, oh, like applying the One Direction logic that I had into like TV shows and movies and stuff, I want to say it was Marvel, because the original Avengers came out in 2012,
Hmm.
and that's where I like acknowledge the MCU's existence because everyone was like, "Oh my god, they built up to it!" Like again, a predecessor for what the other Avengers movies and the rest of the MCU would be. Because again, it was everywhere. I had like, and we'll probably go into this in another episode too, but like I had vague memories of like the promos for the first Captain America movie. I definitely remember the promo for Thor. And then
Yep.
I again, Avengers was everywhere in 2012. And then from then on I was like, "Oh, this is a thing." Because again, Spider-Man for the longest time was its own thing. Yeah, it's under Marvel, but let's be honest, Spider-Man's the most famous superhero from Marvel, if not of all time. So like we both grew up with like the Toby movies and the Andrew movies, like separately because it's their own contained story
Hmm.
essentially.
Yeah.
And then the MCU came. Like the MCU was probably my first introduction to other Marvel superheroes. There's more than just the one. Oh,
I would hope so.
it was also because again, the Andrew films also came out, or at least the first one, Amazing Spider-Man, came out also in 2012. And that was the first instance of me being like, oh, Spider-Man's an ever-changing character. He's been around for years. He's gonna constantly like be in the limelight in some way. The formulation of these are characters, these are well-known characters, and not just like within my own contained like self bubble, if that makes sense. You know?
Yeah.
This was like I could make an argument this was like my thing of like knowing what the fuck what pop culture was.
Going back to school and basically learning that your friends also have the same interests in you. The reason
Mhm.
I changed mine to Pokemon is because I distinctly remember there were just lunch tables filled with Pokemon cards all the time. And then so
Mhm.
much so that the school banned any type of training card.
A classic school move of a
Mhm.
thing is popular, we can't have that. I remember silly bands were definitely banned in my school when those were a thing. Definitely banned. Pokemon is a little bit different for me because my brother was born in the early 90s. So he was the perfect age when Pokemon came out in the West in 96. So I've always been centered around Pokemon, but I just never had a name for it till probably around the DS games. So probably like maybe not Diamond and Pearl, but maybe like X and Y, maybe, or Black and White,
Yeah.
maybe like around there.
Hmm.
So a lot of my formative years of knowing what fandom is and just general fandom etiquette was probably through those early years of like early YouTube and early social media, just like
Yeah.
barely forming, I would
Same.
say. This is embarrassing now, but that's because I was a child. I discovered what fan fiction was because of One Direction. So,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I'm still here. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. It was also badly written, but again, we were also all children around this time. So, you can give it grace.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it wasn't for those 5 guys, I wouldn't be reading fan fiction to this day.
Hmm.
Thanks, but also thanks. Thanks is like
Crazy.
appreciative and thanks is in like also fuck you. Cuz now I'm here.
Uh,
But we like Fandom culture has evolved so much since like the late 2000s, early 2010s, especially because of the internet and the way that it is. I find it so crazy because I feel like some aspects of fandom culture are more accepted than others. We briefly talked about this before we started recording, but when Stranger Things season 4 specifically came out and everybody was clamoring of like Joseph Quinn's performance as Eddie, rightfully so, he did a really good job. Everybody, especially on TikTok, everyone was like, "Oh my god, Joseph Quinn is so hot." And then everyone was just like, in if this was in the Stranger Things universe, or at the very least, if this took place in the 80s, you would fucking hate this man because that man likes heavy metal rock music. He likes D&D, and he's been held back
He's
a
a
few years.
Satanist.
He's also a Satanist, yeah, or he's at the very least he's an atheist
They
at the
think
very least.
they think he's a Satanist. He's not actually,
Yeah.
because he
Also,
listens
he's a
to
drug
all of these things.
yeah, he no, he likes all these things. He's also a drug dealer, so that also doesn't help much.
Mhm.
But um but everyone was just like, "Oh my god, Joseph Quinn's so hot." And then everybody in fandom culture was like, "Oh, so you're saying that just because he's conventionally attractive, even though he's in a wig, even though he's conventionally attractive, you're gonna be like, oh, he's so hot." Meanwhile, if someone had that exact same description but a different face, you would actively like say no to that.
Yeah.
It's such hypocrisy.
It's the same thing with
And that's the
Roderick from the original Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. Everyone loved him, but then as soon as they did the newest one, everyone hated the change.
well, that's because they had a different actor and it was like way past the actual like pastime of the movies.
I know,
And
but
it's also was just
they were just comparing it to the original without.
mhm.
It's basically what you just said with it. If it was any other person, it would be completely different to
Yeah.
how they were reacting to it.
I think that particular movie was based off of a later book in the series, and I think that was a book that was not super well received either. So it was just like bad on top of bad, and people didn't like. There was multiple reasons why people didn't like that movie, other than just the actors.
Hashtag not
Not
my
my Roderick.
Roderick.
Not my Roderick. But yeah, that was another thing too, and I think you and I can both say this. We definitely were into movies or games or TV shows or whatever that our classmates like grew out of or didn't show as active interest in as the
Yeah.
thing got like more popular, more progressed. A perfect example of this is FNAF or Five Nights at Freddy's. I remember everybody in my class loving the shit out of it. People were talking about game theory. They were talking about like specific YouTubers watching it. And then by the time the third or fourth game came out, everyone just didn't give a shit. Meanwhile, I was over here being like, no, I still care. I still like this game and these characters. Like,
Yeah.
it felt almost like it felt almost like they were liking it for a trend, and then I'm over here being like, no, I still think it's cool.
We can tell
Like,
now that it was definitely catered towards a certain age range, but there are people that still genuinely still enjoy that.
yeah.
But it is sad that there's just people that were like, you know, I don't actually think I care about that anymore.
And then people will be like, oh, well, it's you just gotta grow up or whatever.
Whimsy.
And I'm just like, but also, if you're gonna put it like that, then you shouldn't like your superheroes because those technically, by original definition, were catered to children, especially like in the 20s and 30s when they had
And
nothing else. So
and the action figures and the
yeah,
Barbie
action
dolls.
figures.
Barbie
Uh huh.
dolls catered for girls. Action figures catered for boys. They're still dolls.
They're still dolls. They're still pieces of plastic. Yeah,
And don't get me
it's
wrong, I've known many of women that actually would have preferred action figures over dolls. And I love
I
that.
probably well, I did own a couple of Barbie dolls, but I don't know, they were mostly gifts. Like I didn't ask for them. People gave them to me and I did play with them, but it wasn't like, oh, this is my favorite toy. I had other better toys that I definitely played over like a Barbie.
I actually did get a Barbie one time because I didn't know what I wanted for Christmas one time. And we went to the mall, and you know how there's sometimes Santa there and you can go up and talk to
Yeah.
him. So
Mhm.
I was just, I'm pretty sure my cousins were there as well. And all three of us basically said we didn't know what we wanted. So Santa was like, "Okay, you're getting a Barbie doll, you're getting a that, you're getting a that." So yeah, I got a Barbie doll.
Oh god.
She still lives on in somewhere in my house. I don't know where the fuck she is, but she's still here.
She's still here. She's waiting to be
She's in my
uncovered.
wall.
She's in the walls. She's in the goddamn walls. But that's another thing too. That's like another addition for fandom culture is that like something that's has a specific age demographic, but then people that aren't in that demographic liking that thing.
Yeah,
But then you wouldn't get content out of that thing if it was only for that one age range. You
exactly.
know what I mean?
A
So
prime
clearly,
example, a prime example of that is peak My Little Pony.
mhm. Mhm. It's very well documented that the early stages of MLP, there was an unknowingly and unprecedented amount of adult men watching a show that was dedicated and specifically catered to girls under the age of 6,
Hmm.
or actually no, older than that, probably under the age of like 10, I'd say.
I'd
Um,
say six
and
to
even
ten. Yeah,
still, yeah, 6 to 10. And then even then there was adult women that were watching the show too. It wasn't
yeah.
just men, but it was the main shock value of it all was like, "Oh my god, adult men like horses." They like plastic horses.
Horsey.
Um um and everyone was like, "Oh my god." I don't Obviously there was a lot of like accusations thrown around to those people, but most people can say from like interviews of the time being like it's just a good show. Yeah, it's catered towards low like to children and specifically, young girls. But like those lessons that are taught in that show, especially in the early seasons, can still be learned by anybody. It just so happens that
Exactly.
Hasbro was catered to women or catered to girls because that's how MLP was always catered,
Hmm.
because it was so gendered at the time. Back in the 80s, women had MLP and boys had fucking G.I. Joe or Transformers or TMNT or whatever the case was at the time. So it's like, this is their, I don't know, just because you like a thing doesn't mean anything. It could just mean you like the thing, and that's totally
Exactly.
fine.
You're allowed to like things that aren't specifically catered towards you.
Yeah, as long as you don't be weird about it. But that's the thing too. Like video games, movies, TV shows, like the statistics say the demographic is supposed to be this, this, and this. Sometimes you don't cater that audience.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get the complete opposite and you gotta roll with the punches you do have. MLP is one of them. The CW Supernatural is another one where the early maybe first 2 seasons, they were just like, "Oh yeah, this is a manly man show." And meanwhile, most of their fandom consists of women and a good chunk of LGBTQ, sometimes LGBTQ women. And they're just like, "Oh,
Oh yeah,
we gotta fix that, don't we? We gotta fix that."
whatever. It's fine. We'll keep it. We'll
Oh,
put a gay
don't.
relationship in here without actually putting a gay relationship in
Uh, don't get me started on that.
here. Also, animation. All the boomers are saying it's for children. It's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. But that is a good transition though into another aspect of fandom culture is appreciation of the thing you actually like. This
Hmm.
includes, but is not limited to, fan art, cosplay, and in this case, fan fiction. Showing
Yes.
admiration for a thing that you like by doing these things. I can't believe people are like being made fun of for this shit. This is just showing their love and appreciation for a piece of media that they like. And there's
Or,
nothing wrong
for
with that.
some fan fiction, if you didn't like it, you can change it.
That's the beauty of it.
Yes.
That's why I love it so much. Again, going back to the Eddie situation with Stranger Things, there were so many like cosplayers being like, "Hell yeah, I feel seen by Eddie." Eddie would be the kind of person I would be not only in that universe but also in the 80s if I was born. I probably would have been an Eddie. Let's be
Yeah.
honest, I would have been Eddie. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that. I like a lot of dad rock. Thanks, Dad. I I know the irony, but it's true. I don't think I would go to the extreme lengths of like metal, but definitely like harder rock. Like a lot of
Yeah,
like dad rock at the time. I would be listening to along with your
absolutely.
pop girly, your pop girlies of the 80s. It would be a mix, and I definitely would be. I've been wanting to play like D&D, for example, for the longest time since Stranger Things. Actually, that's what got me into realizing what D&D was. I'm like, that looks cool. I want to fucking do that. That seems
Mhm.
fun.
Speaking of D&D and people judging you for it, when I was younger, a few of my friends used to make fun of me for being interested in doing something like that. It's interesting to me, so that's all that matters.
It's also just playing pretend. It's just a numbers game version of playing pretend. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but yeah, that was another thing too, where people felt seen by Eddie in the way that Joseph Quinn portrayed him and how like accurate it was. Granted, it was like time period, adjacent, right? But still, the feelings and the portrayal were still the same.
Exactly.
And it was just a lot of hypocrisy from a lot of people, or at least it felt that way to a lot of people. But Eddie was able to get away with it because he was played by a conventionally attractive actor. Now imagine if somebody other than Joseph Quinn played him. Imagine if it was a random dude off the street that acted exactly like Eddie. You probably would think just like Jason or Chrissy or any other person at Hawkeye. Just being like, what the fuck is this weirdo doing? Why is he doing that? But he's just living his best life. He's just there living his life the way he wants to. To
Exactly.
be cringe to be cringe is to be free. But that's the thing that kind of
Normal people are
pisses me.
weird.
Like, what do you do all day? What hobbies do you have? That's not like relating to fandom. Like, I
You mean
need
to
to
tell
know.
me
Like,
you
yeah,
just go home and stare at the ceiling?
yeah. Like, but also those kind of people are into different things that you and I are. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, their version of fandom is different than ours, and that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when we think of fandom, we think of something entirely different than those people that do. For people that got into Stranger Things because of specific actors or whatever, or because it was, the biggest show on Netflix for like a decade. Meanwhile, other people fell in love with the characters and the story and, the shipping that came with it and all that jazz. I mean, other people were just like, oh, it's just a show that I like and that's it.
Yeah.
Some people aren't. Some people are like that, and some people are like us, where we want to express our love for a show or a piece of media with other people and catering our experiences with that piece of media, you know? And I think that's a great thing. Again, Comic Con would not exist had it not be for fandom culture as a whole, because it originally started as a Star Trek convention. And then it grew into
Exactly.
something bigger where it culminated into basically all things nerdcore or just like anything nerd related or like
Hmm.
nerd or geek or whatever.
My very first um notation of Comic Con was the Phineas and Ferb episode where it's a parody of Star Wars or Star Trek, I don't remember. But
I think it was Star Wars. I know it's Star Wars because Doof was Vader. Doofenshmirtz was Vader, so it was
well
Star
no,
Wars.
that there's an actual like movie that's Star Wars, but there's a there's a convention episode where they have a space war.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. That I think that is supposed to be like it's like an amalgamation, but I think Star Trek. It's like Star Wars, Star Trek, and like The Hobbit or
Yeah,
something like that. Like it's
cause Candace was there, for example.
yeah,
She was only there for Ducky Momo, which that's
that's
a whole
true. Yeah,
that's a whole nother thing that goes into what we were saying with people being like, just because something's not catered towards your age range doesn't mean you can't like it.
yeah,
And I'm
and
pretty
you
sure in
shouldn't.
later seasons it was revealed that Vanessa also kind of likes Ducky Momo. So,
I, yeah, or like there was something in like I think there's like a season since they're making like new seasons. I think there was a whole episode about that, or like or I think it was like Doof wanted to give Vanessa like a doll from her childhood, but it was discontinued. And so when he finally found it at like a good price, she's like, I wanted this when I was 6. And he's like, yeah, but I still got it for you. And then she's like, well, actually, that's really like,
And then the
maybe
one
my
of
dad's actually not that bad.
not so bad a dad after all.
Yeah,
Well, no,
exactly.
the whole thing it was that it was Candace's doll, and then their mother, accidentally threw it away, and somehow it ended up in Doofenshmirtz's possession, and he gave it to Vanessa. So that's what that was.
Mhm. But yeah, you're right. They did have a whole like convention episode. Baljeet, I know, dressed up. I think Buford also
It
did.
was
Most of
it
the
was
cast dressed up.
Baljeet doing the space people, and then um, Buford was on the what are the guys in uh Star Wars that are like gremlins that and they say
Oh,
they just
oh,
speak in one word or
oh, you
like
mean like the? Do you mean like the little like bears? Because those are Ewoks.
yeah, those people. That's what
Yeah, the little Ewoks. Yeah, the little Ewoks.
the
Yeah, it's from
scrappers
episode.
is what I'm gonna call them. Like that's basically what Buford's was dressed as. And then part of the whole convention thing was that they're supposed to have a fight or something because
hmm
it's basically a retelling or reenactment of whatever was happening in the movie that they were there for.
Yeah, that was your first inkling of what Comic Con was a was a Phineas and Ferb episode. I gotta love that,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
I want to say mine was probably around Avengers, so I'd say around like 2012 ish.
hmm,
Because again, it was fucking everywhere, and everyone was like, "I want to meet the cast" and all that jazz. So I think it was like around the same time.
yeah,
If I had to like guess based off when Comic Con was like in the zeitgeist for me. Actually, would it be a bit more than that? I think it might have been more so with like when Guardians of the Galaxy came out in 2014. So I think it was a little bit after that,
hmm,
actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I don't understand why certain people make fun of other people for like liking a thing. Like why does that matter? It's not like as long to me, and the way that I see it when it comes to stuff like this, as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting others, who fucking cares?
yeah.
Who cares? I don't care if you like MLP. I don't care if you like something like TMNT or Transformers or whatever the case is. I don't care,
It
and
doesn't
it shouldn't
matter.
have to be the case. Yeah, like
Well,
that's
it's kind of the same thing with you know how people will complain if someone makes a fan art of a certain thing, but then they make them like more chubbier than they're actually supposed to be. People will get pissed about that for absolutely no
yeah,
reason.
yeah. Sometimes it's just people's art style, or maybe they just want to see more of that particular body type because it's not seen much in media. Who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah,
Who cares?
doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't. It really, really doesn't. That's the same thing with cosplay as well. Cosplay is also a thing where people have gotten like made fun of for doing cosplay, but people have also made a career and get money from being a cosplayer. That's goddamn hypocrisy on that. To be like, Lamau, you're just taking stuff from your closet. I'm like, yeah, this person spent thousands of dollars making their own for Comic Con that's only going to be worn twice.
Hmm.
Think about that for a second. Like I don't think you realize how much time and effort goes into making those as like screen accurate as they do. And even then, sometimes they put their own spin on it and it looks better than what was originally there.
Yeah.
So so
What's
yeah.
the point of making fun of people? Like, it's the same thing with, let's say you like this thing that most people don't like, and then somebody makes fun of you. Like, it's the whole thing that your parents teach you. Don't make fun of someone, treat someone how you want to be treated.
hmm Yeah. But I feel like with cosplay especially, it's supposed to be the whole thing is like, oh, cosplays are everybody. You could, do whatever, whatever, which is supposed to be true. But the fact that so many cosplayers of color have been discriminated against, some of which have passed away because people were like shit talking them and being like, you can't cosplay this character because you're not white, is
Yeah.
so fucking stupid. That is so many people have passed away because of internet trolls. And meanwhile, I've seen some of those people's cosplays. I'm like, those are really fucking well made. They're well done. Like, why would anyone take the time to do that? Like,
Or it's like, I mean, I know it's not as good as, because it could be seen as appropriation, but white people have also cosplayed as prominently black people, which is fine, but it's like I said, it could be seen as appropriation, but also why don't we just go with the whole Miku Spider-Man thing where everyone's canon?
yeah, why not? Why not do that? You know? Like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of white cosplayers will cosplay from anime all the time, but yet when a person of color does it, they get absolutely shit on. Why? They're both not Asian.
Yeah,
Unless, the person of color is. But like if someone is like a darker skin tone, like someone is like a black American, and then a white American does the same character, why does the black cosplayer get so much shit? They're cosplaying the same fucking character, but they're both not Asian.
because
So
racism still
like,
exists.
I don't know, and it's so and it's bad. Racism is bad. That's the lesson here. Racism is bad. But yeah, anytime I see a good cosplay, I don't care about the person who's cosplaying them because I think that, it's great that you want to dedicate your time and your effort and sometimes a lot of the time your money into making a cosplay for your favorite character from your favorite movie or your favorite show.
Exactly.
And you should be appreciative. Like, I want you to know that we appreciate the level of time and effort and dedication you do when it comes to that.
Hmm.
Because, that
Even
takes
if you're
a
just a closet cosplayer, that's still something.
yeah. Fuck, I've even like closeted cosplay with using the stuff in my own closet. They were never good, but they were for fun, and that's all cosplay is.
Yeah,
It's fun because you love these characters,
it's
or you love
Halloween,
the
but all the
all the
time.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
Insert
Exactly.
insert sexy from Mean Girls musical.
That's the thing I'll never understand when it comes to people that don't interact with it. I understand if there's certain aspects of fandom culture, no matter what it is, in different movies or TV shows or whatever. I understand that like some people don't want to interact with what the internet has to do with it. And I get that. But that still doesn't mean that should deter you away from liking a thing. Like there's definitely been times I've seen online where people are like, I don't want to watch this thing because the fandom is horrible or the fandom sucks, which I get. But you can also just not interact with the fandom online, like I did with One Direction. You could
Hmm.
just passively lurk in the background and not post anything, not talk about it, but still be a fan of a thing and still appreciate the fandom, like the fan works that come with it, you know?
Exactly. Like, yes,
And also,
fandom's not for everyone, but that doesn't mean you don't have to interact with them fully. You could even, like, I know myself, I don't, some of the fandoms that I'm in, the people are awful and I don't interact with any of them, but that doesn't mean I can't still enjoy the things that are being talked about.
for any fandom experience, you can curate your own fandom experience. If you don't like a specific part of a particular fandom from a movie or TV show or whatever, a piece of media, you can just not interact with that side of the fandom. You can interact with other people that like the same thing. You don't have to talk with everybody in that fandom. There's
What a
always
crazy
going to be people in
concept.
fandom. Yeah, I know, crazy. Crazy. That goes for everything. If you find that you are getting content from people in a fandom that have like the most outlandish takes about certain characters or certain things and blah blah blah, you can always just not interact. Like for people that have like this character is this, but it's like coming from someone that clearly doesn't understand why that character is the way that they are.
Yeah.
Mostly any like angry Star Wars fan in existence, because very famously, Star Wars fans, when the sequel trilogy was coming out, harassed an actress because she was in the movie instead of yelling at the writers for how they wrote her character. Instead
Yeah.
of, and they instead just decided to harass the actress instead and
Hmm.
say death threats and be super misogynistic about it.
And it happens a lot more often than you might think it would.
Mhm. Mhm. Like, don't
Especially, I'm like, I don't know if it did happen, but whenever the live action Little Mermaid came out, I'm sure there were things that were said that shouldn't have been said.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot to talk about the live action remakes and internet discourse, which we don't have time to get into here. But
That's
like,
a whole nother episode.
that's a whole other ordeal. Yeah. Like, fandom is also determined by where you live or just where you come from as well. A lot of like Asian and a lot of like just a lot of like fandoms, not just specifically just Korea, Japan, and China, but also just a lot of Southeast Asia as well, or just like a lot of that continent is vastly differently curated than like North and South America are. I
Yeah.
guess more specifically North America. The way that that's dealt with is a lot different, and K-pop is a perfect example of that. But it's I don't know. Fandom is such an interesting concept to try to explain to somebody because, in the grand scheme of things, it's just a community based around a piece of media they all happen to like. But they all
Exactly.
like it in different ways, and they show it in different ways. A lot of which comes from fan fiction. Some of it comes from fan art. Some of it is cosplays. Edits you randomly see on TikTok. That technically counts as fandom culture and fandom content, you know?
If it
And
involves a character from a certain thing, it's fandom.
yeah. I just like it's astonishing to me that somebody can just watch a thing and then just be a casual fan of that thing and then never think about it. But then the other half of the population is like, I will dedicate my entire life to this thing because I love it so much and it means so much to me. That
Yeah.
is like I need to know where those people like exist, you know.
Hmm.
Like what do you do all day? You know what I mean? Like I like yes, you don't need to know like the ins and outs of like a fandom to be like a piece of media to be a fan of it. You don't need to know every ins and outs of it. Whoever tells you that is a liar.
Hmm.
Everyone has to start somewhere when it comes to liking a thing. But you should never like be afraid to check it out because chances are you might find some friends because you end up liking the same thing because that's what happened with me. That's what happened with some real life friends, and that's what happened with you know DY and I just like bonding
Yeah.
over Overwatch.
Yeah.
So like people have gotten married because of their mutual interest for a specific thing or a specific character. Put that in perspective. People have gotten married and have lived their lives because the only way I can think of is that a lot of people in fandom spaces are neurodivergent or a good chunk of the time LGBTQ, and people that don't fit in that box make fun of them because lamals they're different. But like,
That's exactly why.
yeah, that's exactly it. But again, you can be neurotypical and still be in fandom spaces. Just like, you know, don't fucking make fun of other people about
Yeah.
that. You know? Like, it's crazy. It's like and again, there's always gonna be bad fan like quote unquote bad fans, but there's always gonna be people that are just unreasonable in a fandom that makes you think, do you even like this thing that you're a fan of? genuine question if you're gonna keep complaining about every single thing about it. You're always gonna find people that will hate watch a thing. And you're
Hmm.
like, really? You're gonna complain about that? You sound more like a fan than I do.
You have
You're
no,
just saying it.
you claim to know absolutely nothing about this certain thing, yet you'll take time out of your day to go on the internet and type out a paragraph of how much you hate this certain thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and again, some interests are more like, what's like some fandoms or certain things and certain media is more like culturally accepted to be a fan of as opposed to like other things.
Yeah.
Like Disney adults are a thing, and people for the most part are like, yeah, I'm just like an adult who likes Disney movies. That's there's a difference between someone who likes Disney movies and someone who's a Disney adult.
Hmm.
But like that's more, or like someone who's a sports fan, for example. That's more like culturally, that's more of a more accepted thing than a fangirl, even though that is essentially the same thing in a different font.
Yeah.
Because misogyny. It's always misogyny. It's always
Hmm.
misogyny, it's always racism, and it's always like ableist. It
God
always is.
forbid, God forbid a giant burly man enjoys a TV show about magical ponies.
Yeah, what if that burly man that watched that TV show about ponies ended up healing a lot of childhood trauma and became a better person because of it? God forbid. Like
Just because he's a man and he likes that is
yeah.
why you're going
Also,
to hate him.
yeah. Also, same thing in reverse. Same thing in
Yeah.
reverse. Just because a woman wants to play Call of Duty because of Ghost doesn't mean she still doesn't like the game. She could probably beat your ass at Call of Duty if she wanted to.
Well, every single one of those social media posts that I see a woman or like a man talking to a woman and degrading her because she's playing a game catered towards men, I'm just like, hell yeah, go girl. You tell that man. Some of these people I want to be like, so this is why you're single.
If I'm gonna like reel it back just a little bit, we did talk about in the intro of the good and bad and the ugly, and I'm gonna bring that up now because as much as fandom is amazing, and I definitely think society is better for it, there's also a lot of bad that comes with it. And sad to say, it mostly comes with shipping. Not necessarily because shipping is bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying shipping with an asterisk because there should be some etiquette when it comes to fandom and specifically shipping. And one of the main etiquettes that constantly gets flown around is do not get the actors involved unless they themselves want to be involved.
It's not just shipping either. It's just hate the character, don't hate the actor. Or if the actor is a horrible person, you can hate them, but still, like it doesn't just go for shipping with that either. There's some people that blame like a villain for being a horrible person in a movie or a TV show, and then they'll actually go out and talk shit to the actual actor when they're probably like a sweetheart in real life.
Yeah. A good example of this, I have a thing for live action and animation for this. When Game of Thrones originally was on the air, people hated Joffrey. I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I don't know what the fuck this tiny little blonde man did. But what I can tell you is that everyone hated Joffrey. So much so that they shit talk the actor. But to me, that just proves he's a good actor. If people hated his character so fucking much, that means he's a good actor.
Yeah.
That to me proves he's a good actor. But people shit talked him so much and he's just like, I'm just here living my life, dude. Now, again, I don't know much about the series and what happened afterwards. So if something else happened, feel free to let me know and we'll do our research afterwards. But to my knowledge of when the show was airing, the actor was just like, dude, I'm just playing a character. That doesn't mean I actually have those views or I actually think like that. I'm just reading from a script.
Yeah. And
And then for
90% it's that as well.
yeah, and then for animation, Hazbin Hotel, the actor who plays Valentino, who plays, for context, a horrible character. Surprise, surprise. The show takes place in hell. So you're gonna get horrible people like Valentino. But
Wow.
there were times where people at conventions and at panels, whenever he was there, would just like talk shit to him. And he's just like, I'm playing a character, right? I don't actually have those views, especially with how horrible Val is. and is seen in the show. Like
Yeah.
obviously he doesn't think those things. He's just reading a script and is clearly doing a very good job.
Mhm.
So, don't harass the actors. 9 times out of 10 they're just doing their job. And also 9 times out of 10, don't harass the directors or the writers because they're also just doing a job and they're probably having executives breathing down their necks about specific things. However, if a specific actor or a director has said something that says otherwise, just do your research and come to your own conclusions when it
Yeah.
comes to that. Because some people have different standards than others, and some people's boundaries will be crossed at different lengths than others
Mhm.
when it comes to consuming a piece of media with a problematic person at the helm or whatever the case is.
I just wish we could all get along and eat cake and be happy all the time. She doesn't even
She
go
doesn't.
here.
um, but yeah, if we're gonna go back to shipping though, again, will like real life shipping with the actual actors, don't do that. Don't do that unless the actors themselves find it funny. Because 9 times out of 10, those actors have their own they all have their own personal lives. They probably have their own partners. Some of them have their own kids. Don't don't get them involved. Again, unless it's like the characters themselves that they're playing, that's something different. If
Yeah.
it's real life shipping is always really contentious because it's like, yeah, it's real life people and these are celebrities who you will probably never meet. But at the end of the day, no matter what their views are, no matter what they say, who says what, who they support, what they don't support, they're still humans at the end of the day. Imagine if millions of people were watching you and they did the same thing to you and your best friend. Like very famously, a lot of relationships, like friendships, have broken apart or have not been the same because the fandom was, shipping them like romantically.
Yeah.
And it really just ruined the dynamic for like a
I
long
mean,
time.
I can speak from experience because when I was younger, I had a slight crush on one of my best friends, and I ended up telling him, and he shut me out.
Yeah. It's it's not great. Like for example, recently there was a panel that Jensen Ackles did, and for those who know Jensen, very famously he plays Dean Winchester in Supernatural, but most recently he played Soldier Boy in The Boys, which recently finished filming and wrapped up earlier this year with a finale, which what I heard from people was iffy to bad, but I've never seen the show so I can't comment on it. But a lot of people obviously know him for playing Dean and were const first of all, stop asking this man about this. Second of all, people were just like, "What do you think about Destiel?" Dean and Cass, a very famous and popular ship from that series, and Jensen made like an offhanded comment about it, and people were mad at him for it. First of all, this man is married with a wife and 3 kids. So, you know. Second of all, this like he's already made comments about how he's uncomfortable with people asking him about it. And also, third of all, get new questions. Stop asking the same fucking questions. Get new ones. A ship that he said like multiple times he's like either indifferent towards or feels uncomfortable when fans ask him about. Which goes with any actor. Again, if the actor themselves are like open about the ship and they acknowledge it and like unless it's something like that, don't get the actors involved. You know what a good example of this is actually? Pedro Pascal is actually a good example of this,
Yeah.
where the internet blew up because he played the Mandalorian in the first 2 seasons and made the 3rd season and then had the movie. But this is also he was in a before Last of Us. He was in a weird gray area where if you knew Star cuz here's the thing with Star Wars people. There's 2 different types of Star Wars fans. You have the ones that only watch the movies when they come out and that's it. They know nothing else, like the casual people. And then you have Star Wars fans that watch literally everything about Star Wars. This includes all the TV shows, this includes like everything under the fucking sun, right?
Yeah.
So Pedro he still is a part of one of the biggest franchises in the world that has made billions of dollars over the course of 50 plus years, approximate, but most people didn't know what he looked like because 99.8% of the time he was wearing a helmet the entire time. As someone who's watched the Mandalorian series, all 3 seasons, I can tell you in those 3 seasons, you only see his face twice without the helmet. You see it twice.
Yep.
Once in season 1, once in season 2, none of it in season 3. And yes, I'm including Book of Boba Fett in this as well. We don't see his face either. I know we see it in the new Mandalorian and Grogu movie, but I haven't seen that yet. So I don't know what the context for that is. But we only see his face a handful of times. So yeah, he was recognized in the Star Wars community for playing Mandalorian, but most of the general public, it's like, oh, well, I don't care because he's not in a mainstay movie. And like, we don't see his face 99% of the time. So who
Mm-hmm.
cares? So when he blew up with The Last of Us, which was already a beloved game that I remember when it came out in 2013, it was a big fucking deal at the time.
It was one of the best games for a few years at that point.
It was all that Naughty Dog could ever work with was the first Last of Us.
Yeah.
Which fair, get that bag. Like clearly, if the people want it, why not? Why not give it to them? But when he was revealed to be Joel, which by the way, there were a few other actors that were asked that were like auditioned. Jensen Ackles surprisingly being one of them, and I think he would have taken it had he been casted for The Boys around the same time to play Soldier Boy. Which I'm imagining Jensen as Joel, and I just alternate universe in an alternate universe. But
I
still,
feel like it wouldn't
Pedro
have
was
worked
ultimately.
as well though.
I think, well, people already are just like he just plays Dean, but like slightly different. Fair. It's kind of fair. I can see why people would make that. But, in an alternate universe. But yeah, Pedro ultimately was chosen, and people fucking foamed at the mouth. Because this
Yeah.
was the first proper time that the internet was like, actually, this is the guy that's under the helmet in that one Star Wars show? Y'all. Y'all. And then, of course, the very famous edit came around on TikTok that had like 5 million plus views. Which that clip, by the way, originates from Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which came out in 2017. I've watched that movie. It's a very good movie.
Yes.
He's only a secondary character. He's only a secondary character in that movie. But regardless, a very famous TikTok edit showed, which I don't think we can show because I don't think that edit exists anymore. And if it does, we can't play the music because it's copyrighted. But
Also,
that edit,
the video would probably be copyright because it's
yeah,
from a movie.
it's from a movie. Yeah. Even with like the edits that the original person did do, it might be like slightly copyright. But if you were on TikTok around the time, you know the one because it got made fun of on SNL when Pedro hosted in like around the time of promotions. You know the one. But yeah, this was the prime example of the internet being like zeroing in on their like favorite actor for the month or whatever. And the internet was at first Pedro was totally chill with it, and he's still pretty chill with it to this day. And he loves that the fans are like that dedicated and they educate him on stuff like that. But then it got to a point where it got weird, and everyone was like, dude, let's not do that, actually. Let's not overstay our boundaries at the end of the day, please. Let's not do that. It basically it got weird pretty quick because some people didn't understand boundaries and interviewers were feeding into it because they knew it would get views, clicks and whatever, and then it just continued to be worse. And so we're like, okay, let's back the fuck up here a little bit. Can we like reset everything back to before that? Yeah, that's
Hmm.
great. But that's a prime example of fandom like coming spontaneously, but then also it can turn dark really quick if it's not like not supervised, but if no one is at the helm, guys, tone it down a little bit. This is like we're we gotta put a break in here somewhere.
Yeah. And if we go back to people hating on the creator of a show, The Last of Us season 1 came out peak Pedro climb, and
Yeah.
people only watched it for him, as you can see with the ratings of the second season, because half of the people who didn't know anything about the original game, if you know, you know, Joel
Yeah,
dies. And
yeah,
after that scene, the ratings plummeted because everyone stopped watching it because they were only watching it for Pedro.
yeah. It also doesn't help that a lot of from again, I did not see season 2. I've only seen clips of season 1 and nothing else. But I have played slash watched the original Last of Us, obviously, and I've played bits and pieces, or I've watched bits and pieces of 2. So I
Yeah.
already knew Pedro's death was inevitable when it came to how they were going to film it. I
Yeah.
already knew that. And you and I, as both fans of the original game when season 1 was airing, we're just like, we can't wait to see how the general public feels about this because they're going to experience the same thing we did when we played or watched the game a decade prior. It's going to be funny. And
Uh-huh.
it was because they had the same reactions we did 10 years prior.
Yep.
It was very funny. It was very funny.
You could tell who had played the game before and who hadn't.
Yeah. But that's the difficulty when it comes to developing something from a beloved game like that. Very famously, Pedro said in interviews that nothing about the game prior to getting the role, but when he told his nephews about it, they're just like, "You better fucking get that role, or I'm basically shunned from this family. You will be blacklisted from our family if you don't get this part." So once he got that like cue from his nephews, he's like, "Oh shit, this is actually like a really big deal." And he
Yeah.
was right. This is probably like one of the most famous things he's done in recent years. But yeah, Pedro's a good example when it comes to fandom sometimes taking it too far. It started good in the beginning to the point where they made fun of it on SNL. But that was to me that was the smoking gun of like a pattern that the internet tends to do. Whenever a male, specifically male celebrity hits a specific like milestone, the internet will just be like, "Wait, actually, hold on." It's but yeah, ever since that one incident with Pedro, it's been an increasingly like pattern that I've seen of whatever like main actor of the month or whatever is like in the headlines for something, and people are like, "Oh my god, he's so hot," and then rinse and repeat for another actor to take its place. Let's talk about fandom impact because certain things have happened to certain pieces of media because the fans wanted it or because the fans made it that way, both negative and positive. One of the things I can actually say that worked was musicals. In 2018, the Broadway production of Beetlejuice originally aired or was like performed, and it went on up until 2020 when the pandemic happened. And the show was already supposed to be ending later that year, but it was cut short. The fans clamored for the rest of the showings to happen, and it eventually did, and it ended its run officially, which is amazing. When musicals are performed on Broadway or on the West End, they basically rent out whatever theater that they're hosting at. They basically have to make so much money a day or whatever to pay like their rent essentially. And the musical didn't do that. It wasn't until fans on TikTok were making memes, they were like posting videos about it and stuff, making fan art, that they actually started to raise the money to pay back their debt or whatever.
Yeah.
But it ultimately wasn't enough. But the fans wanted it and they were able to relocate to a different theater to perform the rest of the shows that were promised before the pandemic closed down. That
Mhm.
I think is a good example of fans being like, no, we actually really like this thing and we want it to succeed and get the love it deserves. And I love that as a fan of the musical and as a fan of the original movie.
Yeah, that
I
is awesome.
yeah,
Well, actually,
it's
now that I think about it, we could talk about Sonic because whenever
yeah,
the trailers
I
came
can't
out,
believe
that god awful thing, and then everyone complained about it, and they
it.
fixed that.
I know, you are gonna so put that horrifying thing on screen. You're gonna post
No,
a
I'm not.
comparison of what it's like.
I'm not gonna be mean like that.
This is good. I don't think people need to see it again. It's been burned to death. But
If you wanna see it again, which I don't know why you would, you can look it up yourself.
Don't mess with the Sonic fandom. They've been burned so many times that they're like, no, we want something good for a change. And then they did.
They weren't going for cartoony. They were trying to go for more realistic. Because
Which,
it's a live action show, so that's why I feel like it was intentional, and they were going for a more realistic look with it being a live action movie, but it ended up not going how they thought it was going to go. And so they
yeah,
just made it more character correct.
that's a testament to fans being like, we want something better. And for once, the executives actually listened.
Speaking about shipping, in The Legend of Korra, people shipped Korra and Asami just for fun, and the writers were actually influenced to make it canon.
Yeah, see, there we go. That's a positive thing that the fandom was like, we want this, and the people behind the show was like, you know what? Why don't we do that?
Yeah,
A good. I love that. 10 out of 10. Love that. I mean, it's not like Nickelodeon was able to show that until the very end, but the fact that they did it at all is good. You know, A plus
yeah,
for effort, guys.
yeah.
Um, another good example of this that I can think of is this is a show that you do not know of, but the people that know. Most popular girls in school, which is a stop motion show here on YouTube using Barbie dolls as their stop motion puppets. I love the show. I watched the show when I was way too young, and I would have no doubt if a lot of my humor comes from that. But when they were posting the show in the early seasons, because it was posting weekly, because the episodes were not very long originally. But because they were uploading it like semi like bi-week, not bi-weekly, they were like bi-monthly or something like that. It was like pretty consistent. They would be reading the comments, and they were influenced to do things because people in the comments like pointed something out, and they're like, what are you talking about? We totally planted that seed. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like and shit like that, where people were like influenced, or they were influenced, or like they made a mistake, and then in a later season they're like, you know what? We can make this into something good. Actually, we'll make something that was originally a mistake, but turn it into something that would lead into something else in one of
Yeah.
the later seasons. I love that.
And as another thing for Steven Universe, the only reason Sapphire and Ruby were able to get married in the show was because of fan support.
Hmm. Who could have guessed that the show about gay rocks wants the gay rocks to kiss? Who could have
That's
guessed?
crazy.
Fans of a thing will support anything for that thing, but sometimes it goes like
Too far.
too far. Yeah. And there needs to be boundaries set for a thing. It should be like slightly different etiquette depending if the thing is like live action or animation, but it still needs to be like it's still like, just
There needs to be a line.
yeah. There needs to be. You have to remember that these people are making this thing due to specific obligations, or it's because it's a passion project, or whatever the case is. Just be mindful of the things you consume, and be respectful of the creatives and the people involved with these projects, because sometimes they don't know anything that goes on the internet, and if they do, they have like minimal, and that's okay. Sometimes you don't need to involve with them in anything, and sometimes you don't want them to know that you make edits of your favorite characters to them.
Especially if it's with WAP by Cardi.
Which character? Well, there's a lot of characters. Who knows about that one? Do we remember?
No, I'm just
I
saying.
mean,
It just in like a song that's like that. Like I wouldn't
Um,
want someone that I wouldn't want the person to know that the edit is about what to know that that song was used for because
oh,
with the implications of the song, you know,
I see. Okay, yeah, yeah.
is what
Don't
I'm
base
trying to
like
say.
don't. Oh, okay. Just don't show off a lot of NSFW fan art. Is like stuff like that. Yeah, don't give implications to that. One last thing I think we can talk about is angry fans. Very famously, a lot of things have happened in fandom because fans got mad. As a creative, when it comes to a showrunner or anything like that, you can't always interact with the fans the way that you maybe want to. Because sometimes the fans will get carried away, and there's a parasocial aspect that comes with it, especially if you are the face of something.
Yep.
Now, people do need to learn about their boundaries, obviously, but again, don't just be mindful, please. It's all we ask. Don't go up to the actors and be like, "How do you feel about this, this, and this?" And the actors are like, "I have no idea what the hell you're talking about." Same thing with photo ops. Some of the photo op photos we've seen of actors with people are very. Some of them are really funny. Some of them are really wholesome. Just again, know your boundaries when it comes to those photos. Some of them are really funny though.
These poor actors aren't going to want you all up in their face asking these weird ass questions
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
some things that they don't even either know about or have either clearly stated that they're uncomfortable about.
hmm And it's different for every actor or every celebrity. Sometimes some of them are more chronically online and they do know about the stuff that's going on, and then some of them aren't, and you have to respect those boundaries with it. There's some actors that come from like musical theater, or they come from like nerd aspects of culture, and therefore they know how these kind of fans have that kind of mentality. Some of them don't. Some of them are more vanilla than maybe we'd like to admit. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. That just means you have to proceed with caution with every experience. And we have to know
Exactly.
our boundaries as fans.
Like I
To
said earlier, treat people how you want to be treated.
We have a lot of passion for the things we've talked about in this podcast, and we will, continue to talk about, but we still know our boundaries. We know that if we met some of our celebrity crushes, if we ever did, we would still treat them like normal people because that's what they are. That's who they are at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Is, yeah, you may play a character that I like, but you are still a guy who pays taxes. So,
Just because they play this certain person doesn't mean they're exactly like that or they
yeah,
agree with everything that person does in this
yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah. I will say this, it's always really fun when an actor is also a fan of the thing that they're a part of, or they're a fan of something else and then it later manifests into something. I really like that. It humanizes them a little bit more.
Yeah.
Being like, I really like this thing and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I also
Like
really like when
for
an actor is able to like something and if they're on a certain show, they can bring it in a certain way. Like
Yeah,
bring it into whatever, like let's say they like a video game or something and they're able to bring it as a reference into whatever movie or TV show they're working on. That's fun. That's
yeah,
part of the fandom.
yeah. And
Oh,
but
speaking of respecting people,
mm,
John Hutcherson came out last year and said he didn't like Taylor Swift's music, and the Swifties went absolutely feral on him.
yep, yep. But
Everyone's
look, I
entitled
know
to their
that.
own opinion. Shout it
Yeah,
from the rooftops.
shout it from the heavens, yeah. And like, and again, same thing. You don't have to absolutely despise Josh for having that opinion. He never said he hated people that listen to Taylor. He just says that he wasn't a fan of her music and he's like passive. It's an opinion that was different and the fandom dogpiled on him when it was not necessary, like at all. But that's another thing too. Music fandom is so like vastly like different compared to like a media fandom, like a movie or TV show or something. It is you have to treat it almost like a subsection almost of how fandom stan culture is.
Yeah.
It's like and again, some fandoms, Swifties included, that are notorious on the internet for being ruthless online.
Mm-hmm.
Because how dare you disrespect so and so or whatever. Sometimes you're going to get people that are just casuals that just listen to the music and nothing else. And you're going to get people that are like dedicated to the craft, that
Yeah.
will buy every single piece of merch, that will do this, this, and this. And I'm going to say this right now, no matter if you're a fan of a specific artist, it doesn't matter which artist you are a fan of for the most part. You are no or more or less of a fan if you buy merch or you only listen to their stuff casually. That still means you appreciate the work that they put out, and by default, that makes you a fan.
Mm-hmm.
That does just because you don't know every single lyric or every single like minute detail of that person or persons nuts. You are still a fan. You don't have to like everything that that artist puts out. You can admit when your favorite artist doesn't put out a song that you like, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. It's like Pokemon. Everyone has their favorite Pokemon, no matter how obscure it is. You're always gonna find somebody whose favorite is the garbage bag or the ice cream cone. You know what I mean? You're always
Yeah.
gonna find those people that have that. And that's fine. Not everyone's favorite is gonna be Eevee or Pikachu or Charizard, you know? You're going to find your more like obscure, quote unquote, like obscure ones. I think we should probably start to wrap up. What did we learn today?
We learned that you should not judge people for their interests, and you should accept their interests just because they're different from yours.
And even if you don't like that interest, that doesn't mean that you have to hate the person. I think that should just about do it.
Yeah.
I think that should be the end of our episode.
Yes.
So, do all the things. Comment, like, subscribe, follow us on separate socials, all that jazz.
And until next time, this has been Dysfunctional.